Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, and it's a pretty big one today. I did not expect to wake up to the news that we're going to be tackling straight away, because the swap deal, the major swap deals that Todd Bowley has wanted to complete at Chelsea since the takeover in 2022, maybe, just maybe, in some way this is his dream coming true, even though he's not really involved in transfers anymore. But obviously, we're going to be speaking about that big story: Napoli, Chelsea, Lukaku, Osimhen. We'll get into that. Obviously, there's some Conor Gallagher news and some other transfer stuff to delve into before we get to the next preseason game against Club America. I do just want to shout out and promote. I released a podcast, and the first part of it is already on the YouTube channel, but the full podcast with Mono CFC is now available on all podcast platforms. I really enjoyed having a conversation with Mono. I think he's a great guy, really great insight, and our conversation in full context. I'm going to release a few more clips because we did speak about the goalkeeper. We spoke about Reece James, and I want to release those to the YouTube channel, but to hear the full conversation, because there's other things we delve into in a lot of insight, and the nice thing is, as well, Mono disagrees with me about things, and I think we had a really nice conversation about those things as well, about Maresca. So really enjoyed that. Go and support his show. Please go and check out the podcast, and obviously I will be posting a few more clips from that conversation. And if you want to see more long form stuff like that, please do let me know in the comments, because I saw already some positive responses to it. But let's delve into it right now. So David Ornstien, of all people, Napoli and Chelsea continue talks over Lukaku transfer, Victor Osimhen loan as well. So Napoli are in ongoing discussions with Chelsea to sign Lukaku, while dialogue between the clubs also continues about a deal for Victor Osimhen to head in the opposite direction. It is expected that any move for Lukaku would be permanent, whereas the Osimhen talks centre on a loan with an option to buy. This would be, am I overselling it? I mean, this would be one of the most shocking moves of the summer. Not exactly shocking in the sense that it doesn't make any sense, which I feel like I say a lot when I'm talking about Chelsea transfers. It's just that deals like this rarely happen. And when you think about who's gaining out of this deal more, I mean, maybe both clubs are gaining out of it. I think Lukaku reuniting with Conte, staying in Serie A, which he clearly enjoys playing, I think is a fine move. But then losing Osimhen potentially just on a loan. I think the interesting thing is that it would be a loan with an option to buy, which I find staggering that there wouldn't be an obligation to buy. Because to lose Victor Osimhen for a season, and the benefit that could give to Chelsea in a really big way, if Osimhen stays fit, he clicks, he works as a big striker for Chelsea, could solve a lot of Chelsea's problems. But it just, in terms of how Lukaku's worked out for Chelsea, and Lukaku being a massive headache, it feels like it's solving a lot of problems for Chelsea all in one go. There are obviously some other parts to this which we can discuss, but staggering really that it could turn out this way for Chelsea. I think the biggest complication for me is not only that deals like this very rarely happen, but obviously wages. We have to bring it up because this is something that has happened with Chelsea already this summer. They really pursue a target, and then it feels like they get into negotiations and then they're absolutely stunned that they have to pay serious money to that player to get him in. Now, of course, it's not a full transfer. It would be a loan. But, I mean, Napoli would be absolutely silly if they were to go into negotiations with Chelsea and not demand that Chelsea pay, if not all, significant majority, the proportion of his wages. I mean, it would just make absolutely no sense from Napoli. I know the discrepancy in finances between Serie A clubs and Premier League is already vast, but why would you allow Victor Osimhen to walk out the door even without an obligation to buy? I'd like to see how that develops, because these deals feel so rare. It feels such a unique beast in this sense, but they would be paying permanently for Lukaku, allowing Osimhen to go out on loan, potentially only for a season, and what that could entail. So we'll see how that develops. But obviously, Michael Elise is the one that pops up in my mind instantly, where they were pursuing this guy for a long period of time and then dropped out of the deal when things got serious. I think for Chelsea's point of view, it really would hurt them if this happens again, because it feels like you are doing a deal that's going to get a lot of positivity, potentially solves a massive headache in your squad, talking about Lukaku, but then also arguably if you're someone who has believed throughout the summer that Chelsea need to sign a big centre forward, in many ways, for a lot of people, this answers that question. And also, it doesn't tie you up in a long-term commitment. That's the insane part of this deal as well. If it is only a loan for a year, try before you buy, and potentially you're trying before you're buying an amazing player. So that in itself makes this one of the most unique, I think, transfer stories we have seen in recent time. Looking at the numbers, Osimhen has 76 goals in 133 appearances for Napoli since joining from Lille in July of 2020. He scored only 15 last season as Napoli endured a more difficult campaign after, of course. He contributed 26 goals in Napoli's run to a first Scudetto since 1990. So Osimhen has some question marks that I have spoken about as far back as January. You can go and find the show. I may link it up in the cards. Me and Matisse spoke about it. I have concerns about his injury record, which is present there and is not something you can just sweep under the rug. It is something that he struggled with. And also just, I think, a general concern of Chelsea getting the best out of players when they buy them. The ironic thing about Lukaku moving in the opposite direction is, for whatever you say about Lukaku, I think the Chelsea failure also has some responsibility on the club's shoulders and Thomas Tuchel's shoulders, in the sense of buying a player and not utilising him to the best of his ability, not playing him in a way that he has succeeded and thrived in for the rest of his career. Osimhen in a Maresca system, which is maybe, and me and Mono spoke about this, right, that centre forward is dropping a lot deeper. He at times has to, contribute to the possession style of football. Osimhen is a clinical finisher. He is someone that thrives inside the 6-yard box. And I'm not saying he doesn't have other parts to his game. He has athleticism. He has clearly good technique to play to the level he has, and good decision making too. But I think if you were going to buy Osimhen, if you're going to commit to Osimhen, I think it's incumbent on Maresca that you make that situation work, because Osimhen is not coming in to be a rotational figure. He isn't a Marodion or John Duran or other strikers Chelsea have been linked to this summer. He would be the star man, even on a loan. He would be deemed first choice. So you need to get the best out of him to make this one of potentially the deals of the century for Chelsea. Of course, they would have to pay serious money next year, but at least for 1 year, you could potentially be getting someone who turns out to be a really big player. And when you add that onto the goals of Nicholas Jackson, when you add that onto hopefully the fitness of Christopher Nkunku, Cole Palmer, it potentially changes. If Osimhen avoids injury, if Osimhen proves to be everything people who are fans of him feel he is, this could be, again, one of the deals of the summer. But, I think there are still major hurdles for this to come off. But the fact that it's where it is and a guy like David Ornstien is reporting about it should make you feel that it's a serious proposal, or at least a serious possibility at this point. But, serious people were talking about Elise, and then Chelsea very quickly pulled out of that deal. I think the Lukaku transfer, I still think, if I was to weigh up the percentage of what I think is going to happen, I think it's very high that Lukaku moves to Napoli permanently. I think Chelsea can get that deal done. I think Napoli will want to make that deal done. I think there's a lot of contributing factors there that make that deal a real possibility. Lukaku wanting to reunite with Conte wanting Lukaku wanting to stay in Serie A, and of course, Chelsea probably wanted to get Lukaku off the books and end that headache that they've been dealing with. I think the Osimhen one is a more complex situation, but we've heard through PR, like with John Obi Mikel and others, Didier Drogba, of course, meeting with Osimhen at AFCON, you clearly see a player who has a link to Chelsea. So that's maybe what gets this deal, very unique deal, off the line. So let me know your thoughts. Do you have doubts, or you just staggered that this could even be a possibility? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about a little bit of a negative. There always has to be with Chelsea. Atletico Madrid and Chelsea are now in direct talks for Conor Gallagher. This has been reported by several people, Fabrizio Romano, other reporters around Spain. Negotiations underway for package worth around 35 million euros, add-ons included. This would be a real blow. Now, I have to state that in the Athletic Zone kind of transfer update, state of play, I think they call it, they talked about it and didn't really reference this deal at all. They spoke about the kind of the standard stuff we've heard about Conor Gallagher, that yes, Chelsea would like to sell him, but it's very much in Gallagher's camp whether he's going to agree to a move, because that's also the big thing. Chelsea can be in negotiations and talks with Chelsea for a Conor Gallagher deal, and Chelsea may want it to happen, but if Gallagher doesn't want it to happen, it ain't going to happen. So there still is a major part of this that needs to happen. Gallagher needs to agree to it. Now, I think if you were saying to me Gallagher has to leave this summer and he has to go to a club outside of England, I think that's a lot more palatable, but that doesn't mean it's a great move for Chelsea. That doesn't mean we're strengthening our squad. I think to lose both Galllagher and Chalobah, I think would hurt for a lot of fans, especially Galllagher, given what he contributed last year, and still feeling like he could be an absolutely vital player for Chelsea. And just the way he's being forced out, I don't think is a nice situation like the Chalobah one. I don't think it reflects very well on the club's decision makers. And, you can sweeten things by signing Victor Osimhen, but, I've constantly talked about this, that, what is this summer for? What is a transfer window for? Is it for strengthening your squad, or is it about dancing around financial regulations? And more what I've gleaned, other than stuff like Osimhen, other than Elise links earlier in the summer, there have been very few times this summer I've looked at Chelsea and thought, yeah, we're serious about strengthening our squad, and that is a major problem. So, losing Conor Gallagher, I don't think makes your squad stronger. I think it makes it weaker. And even if it does go to Atletico Madrid and you don't have the pain of watching him put on a Man United, Liverpool, or Man City shirt, Gallagher still wants to stay at Chelsea, and I still think there's a reality where he remains. He forces the club's hand, and if they try and do what they've done with Chalobah, if they try and exclude him, I think they're asking for a lot of trouble inside Stamford Bridge, because at the moment, when there's no games being taken place inside Stamford Bridge, you don't get that visceral crowd reaction. You'd be hearing Conor's name sung. You'd be hearing and seeing people visibly and actively protest against that. So, again, another situation I don't think is going to be resolved quickly. I think is going to be one that drags on. But of course, Galllagher, like other players, like Cole Palmer, like Marco Correa, won't be at the US tour and won't be returning probably to that Inter Milan game. So this one I think will drag on a little bit more. Apparently Chelsea are going to consider selling Ben Chilwell for the right price amid doubts over his suitability for Maresca's style. And this again, reaffirms what I said about Galllagher. Could still have his contract renewed or be sold if a suitable offer is received, though he will have a big say in how his situation is resolved as he enters the final year of his deal. Some other things to clean up here. Obviously, we've got the Club America game now. So it's believed that both Dewsbury Hall and Nicholas Jackson could play a part. I think it's more likely that Jackson, as being reported, will get some minutes, hopefully, against Man City, the next game. But especially Dewsbury Hall has been suffering with some kind of injury. Enzo Fernandez, I almost said Enzo Maresca, we have to get clarified over the Enzos this year. Enzo Fernandez is returning now to the Chelsea first team and returning to preseason training. He's already there. 29th was when he returned, so that was yesterday. And yeah, this is one that's going to drag on. And I'm, very curious to see how Chelsea handle this situation. I don't think it's something that's just going to be... It's not a snap of the fingers. It's not a nice statement and you just forget about it for the rest of the time. I think a lot of people would like that to be the case, but I just don't think it will be, and rightly so. And I think my comments, I think I may have discussed this before, but I think the comments of my show when I talked about Enzo Fernandez and the comments since actually surprised me a bit of how forceful people were. I knew it was a serious situation. But, you deal with a lot of this stuff on social media where people are just, blinded by their support for a player, blinded by their support for their club, and could never see anything their club does wrong. And there are people who just, have a go at me whenever I dare criticise the club, because apparently I'm supposed to sit here 100% of the time and never question anything Chelsea do. And how dare you question the thought process? How dare you question Chelsea? How dare you even try and spin things in a negative way, even though I'm not spinning things, I'm just reacting to things honestly. But this is another one that I think has really hurt Chelsea fans, and I think clearly has hurt and affected the Chelsea players. And how this gets resolved, is there a sanction internally at Chelsea? Is there a sanction to come from FIFA? How do those players react to Enzo Fernandez if it is perceived and kind of seen that he kind of doesn't suffer from it that much? I mean, he quickly becomes a first teamer under Enzo Maresca. He is once again deemed a big player for Chelsea, and it just kind of swept under the rug. I wonder the long-term repercussions that may not be actively felt in big ways, but may simmer throughout the course of this season. And that is the shame of it, but that is the reality. So those are all the things to talk about today. We'll see how this Osimhen Lukaku situation pans out. I mean, it could be a really, really big moment in Chelsea's summer, but I still look at it and go, that just sounds a little bit silly, but it isn't coming from a bad source. I mean, David Ornstien is probably one of the most trusted news sources for transfers in the world. So this is not some kind of guy just throwing out a wild rumour out there that sounds nice or sounds kind of fantasy for people to believe in, but this is, legitimate news. So I think obviously we have to cover it and to see how that plays out. So let me know your thoughts and everything. Please go and check out that discussion with Mono CFC, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.